freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Welcome to our first episode of the year 2017.
Yes, Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes, we have, this is episode 71, right?
Oh,
so it's
getting older.
So, and here's the thing. There's a bunch of sevens going on here. It's got to mean something, right? This is going to air on Saturday, January 7th. Of 2017, and it is episode 71. Something's going on there, right? If you're into numbers, that's got to mean something. We are actually going to Vegas.
Does the slot machine still have sevens on them? I don't even think they have sevens on them anymore.
Some of them got to. They probably dance around on the screen. They're all video. And well, I didn't even say welcome to Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are sponsored by azfirearms.com, the biggest little gun shop in Arizona. Even with my squeaky, trying to get over a cold voice, I thought that was going to come out nothing but air. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm Dan Todd. Happy New Year. We've got a great show today. Our theme is better, stronger, and faster. And Cheryl, you got some explaining to do.
All right. Well, those of us who grew up in the 70s when we hear those three words put together, we think of Steve Austin, the $6 million man, the bionic man.
Better, stronger, faster.
All right. Did that just take anybody else back? Right?
You know, I didn't like that show. I thought they spent too much money.
Oh. No, not even close.
I think they could have done it for half.
You think?
I do. I really do.
They should have shopped around a little bit. Well, my brothers and I, we lived and breathed that show. We acted it out. It was exciting when the Bionic Woman came along because
yeah, that was good. That part was good. I agree with that.
It was all the running scenes, right? It was like before Baywatch, we had the Bionic Woman. Anyway, so better, stronger, faster. I think that many of us went to the polls in November and we raised a glass of champagne on New Year's Eve, subconsciously hearing this theme in the backs of our minds, right? We can rebuild what's broken. We can make it all better and faster and stronger. Our country and our Constitution have been through a very rough season, but we have hope that we can rebuild, restore, and make America great again. The rough and tumble 2016 election and all the aftermath and hypocritical and ironic twists and turns made me remember that opening sequence of this TV show from the 1970s. Steve Austin, he's the $6 million man. He's the bionic man. He's an astronaut shooting for the highest regions of space who ends up in a terrible crashing back to Earth. In the theme, we hear the bionic man's voice say, "I can't hold it. She's breaking up. She's breaking up." And then that terrible crashing sound that follows. Some of us see similarities in how the lofty ideals of the past 8 years have resulted in a similar sound of dissension and destruction. On the TV show, the calm, assured voice of Oscar Goldman comes in and he says, "He's barely alive, but gentlemen, we have the technology. We have the capability to make him better than he was before. Better, faster, stronger." This is exactly what President-elect Trump has said about his plans for the future of America, and we must do our part to help in that endeavor. Whatever your gifts or talents are, even if you didn't vote for Trump, you have the capability to do something within your sphere of influence to rebuild some broken area in yourself, in your home, in your neighborhood, in your city, in your state, or in our federal government. Let's all work together, all parties, all affiliations, all citizens, to make America better, stronger, and faster than ever before. Dan?
Well, made me think of something. How much did it cost to build the $6 billion man?
Ding, ding, ding. I know this one. It's $6 million.
Think about how much it would cost today to do that.
Oh, my gosh. Right?
I mean, the ironic man. No, we won't talk about that, but we'll talk about how much it cost Obama just to do a website for
what is that number?
Obamacare.
What? It's like in the B's, the billions,
Yeah.
isn't it?
$2.1 billion.
No.
$2.1 billion.
For a website.
It shouldn't even cost the 0.1. Right? Shouldn't it cost
So the $6 million man in today's money,
It
if
depends.
it's a government contract.
Trump could build it for $4.83. Obama would be $55,263.90.
He'd have Boeing and whoever else competing against each other and drive that price right down, wouldn't he? My goodness. That is amazing. Is it really $2.1 billion? You know, if they would have just spent that money to help people who had health issues,
Right.
it seems like that would have gone a long way towards making America better, faster,
But maybe he wouldn't have been able to put his name on it.
He didn't want his name on it.
Oh, he didn't?
Actually, no. It was supposed to be the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well,
and then when we realized it really wasn't so
let's save the Affordable Care Act
and it
for
wasn't
another,
very caring.
Let's save the Affordable Care Act for another episode. But
All right,
today,
have you even introduced our guest yet? We are being
I'm trying
silly
to.
here.
I'm
All right.
trying to. Turn her mic off so I can explain who. Okay.
Oh man,
Our first hour.
We have gone off the rails. in
Happy
our-
New Year.
Yeah.
We probably drank a little too much and it's kind of overflowing. I don't know.
Oh, this is great. Go ahead.
Our first hour, we have Clover Lawson, one of the founders of Lawson Palmer, a custom solution provider for sales and marketing in the shooting sports industry. She has developed a Making America Great Again. She is involved in Making America Great Again and a DC Project delegate and speaker at Trump rallies. So she got to go to the rallies?
Yeah, I got to speak at.
I want to do that.
I know.
As long as I don't have to read and talk, I could probably handle that. We have Andrew Branca, an internationally recognized expert of American self-defense law and author of the Law of Self-Defense. Andrew is also frequently a featured speaker around the country and provides legal expertise for such news outlets as the Wall Street Journal and NPR. Our second hour, we have Kelly McMillan, the CEO of McMillan Fiberglass Docks located here in Phoenix. If you hunt, shoot, or compete, you know that McMillan name means top-tier quality and design. This is a family business, American dream success story, even after some major government meddling.
And there's Obama again. He and his Attorney General, Eric Holder,
Do you have to say that name? You're probably going to have to say Hillary Clinton sometime tonight, too. Huh? Stop it.
They headed up a horribly illegal and unconstitutional program called Operation Choke Point, where they went to lending agents like banks, like Bank of America, and they put stricter regulations on them if they were going to do business with perfectly legal entities such as FFL holders, gun stores, ammo dealers, anybody involved in the gun business and other industries. But yeah, so thank you so much for that.
If it was Joe's Crack Service, something like that. But for a licensed gun shop or a licensed business,
we are one of the most highly regulated entities, businesses there could possibly be, and now they got to squeeze off our money flow from the banks. That's a tough go, but the McMillans made it. We've made it, and we're on to better things, better, faster, stronger. Right?
yes, but we still can't just sit back and relax. We have to stay on top of things. We also have Frank Miniter. He's the author and contributor of Forbes magazine, who recently wrote an article titled, "Beware of the Mainstream Media Solutions to Fake News." So, what is and how do we recognize this to avoid it? Fake news.
Well, he's gonna give us some great ideas. He wrote an awesome article that is up on our website, the Beware of Mainstream Media Solution to Fake News. So it's going to be good.
We also have John G. Miller, the author of QBQ, The Question Behind the Question, and several other titles speaking to personal accountability, eliminating blame, procrastination, and victim thinking. John is joining us today as part 4 of our 4-part series on conflict de-escalation and conflict resolution.
I'm so excited to have him on. He is such an awesome guy. And we actually had him come out and speak to our team, and we invited other people in at our auction house, Pot of Gold Auction, a couple of years back.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was fun, and it's an important way of thinking because, we always want to look at what somebody else is doing to us. And he constantly brings it back around to you. What can you do to improve your situation?
Did he send a copy of this to Hillary?
Moving right along.
The title says, "What to Really Ask Yourself to Eliminate Blame Victim Thinking." Maybe he should.
We're moving right along.
Oh, we are.
We're moving right along because we are always trying to, not end conversations with our opinion, right? We're always trying to open conversations. We're trying to invite people that maybe disagree with our thought process and our opinions. And so we're having a little bit of fun today, but we really do want to hear everybody's opinions about things. And if we just keep hammering the other side, that's not going to happen, right?
No, we have to have an open conversation. That's true. I'm just having a little fun today because I want to.
And at the end of our show, we always have our Responsibly Armed Citizen Report. And instead of Danny's rant, right, we have Dan's commentary. So stick around. We have an awesome show. And right after this, we're going to be talking with Clover Lawson. So stick around.
Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger.
That don't kill me, can only make us stronger. I need you to hurry up now, cause I can't wait much longer. I know I got to be right now, cause I can't get much stronger. Man, I've been waiting all night now, that's how long I've been on ya.
Hi, I'm Paul Lathrop. I'd like to talk with you about the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. As many of you know, you'll likely have to win 2 fights if you have to use your gun in self-defense. The first fight is the gunfight itself. The second fight is the fight to clear your good name through the legal system. You don't need to draw your gun to find yourself in a legal battle for your life and freedom. Even if you do everything right, you may still be prosecuted, which could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. The Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network is an official sponsor of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and they will completely take that worry away by giving you financial assistance and legal assistance if you have to use your gun in a legitimate self-defense situation. In my case, it was $12,500 just to get out of jail and get the attorney started. Don't let an overzealous anti-gun prosecutor make your life miserable because you chose to legally defend yourself. Sign up at armedcitizensnetwork.org for only $135 for the first year and discounted renewals. Or you can call 360-978-5200 and just tell them Paul sent you.
Hey ladies, Cheryl Todd here from azfirearms.com. Many of us ladies are taking the important step of becoming responsibly armed, but it can be an intimidating process. And with all the politics swirling, a first-time gun buyer, whether a guy or a lady, might feel uncertain about where to begin and who to trust. At azfirearms.com, we are a small, friendly, family-owned shop that specializes in first-time gun buyers. We are staffed with knowledgeable people who are ready to help answer all of your questions. My husband husband Dan and I pride ourselves on having a safe, no-pressure environment. Once you have decided on a purchase, azfirearms.com partners with professional firearms instructors who will train you to become a responsible, safe, prepared, and proficient gun owner. So ladies and gents, when you are looking for personalized service and a huge selection, come to azfirearms.com in Old Town Avondale off the I-10 and Dysart Road, or visit us on the web at azfirearms.com.
Welcome back to Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are sponsored by azfirearms.com, your nationwide hometown gun shop. And in all of our silliness in our opening segment, I did mention that this show will air on Saturday, January 7th. 2017, and it's episode 71. So there's a whole lot of sevens going on there. But that we are pre-recording is what we forgot to say. And so today, as we're sitting in the studio, it is Tuesday, January 3rd. And so if any major news stories come along that you would have expected us to talk about, and we don't, please know we're not ignoring it. We just, we went into the studio early because we're going to be off playing this weekend. One of our relatives, my brother's coming into town, and we're going to go have some family fun. So thank you for sticking around. Our theme today is better, faster, stronger, and our first guest is Clover Lawson, a founding partner of Lawson Palmer. Clover represents world-class competition shooters and works with some of the best manufacturers in the firearms industry on product development and go-to-market strategies. Miss Clover, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show with us. Now, before we dive into like Lawson and Palmer and all the great stuff that you guys do there, with the theme of our show, you know, I think you're such a perfect person to bring on because this past year, 2016, you dove in and volunteered to help out with the DC project. You know, that's a totally grassroots organization. And then you also were asked to be a speaker at a Trump rally.
Right, not just one, a couple.
I thought so, but I didn't want to overstate it.
That's okay. That's okay. The first one was there's nothing like your first public speaking engagement in your whole life in front of 16,000 people. That's all I'll say about
Oh, my God.
So,
but you stepped up and did it.
Oh, my God. What was really funny is people, when I got off stage, people were like, oh, my God, you sounded like you've done this your whole life. I said, isn't that funny that I've never done this before? But that just goes to show you. Plus, I think I found my calling. I really enjoy public speaking now.
Mm-hmm. It is fun, isn't it?
You know, it's very, and when you're passionate about something and you believe in it, you can easily speak and, you know, exact your point to people so that we can get the whole entire message across, you know?
Absolutely. So how were you chosen, especially since you don't have a shingle out saying Clover Lawson public speaker?
Yeah, no, I know. Now I think I've got more of that shingle out because I've been asked many times to do other things now and different environments and different things. But I really hadn't made a decision politically who I was going to back at the time. I got a phone call from a friend of mine who was I have friends in varied places. I know you do too, Cheryl, because, you know, the more we are in this industry, the more we find that we relate to people in all kinds of walks of life. Well, this gal is a gun girl as well and lives here in Florida. She was the Florida director for the Trump campaign. And so I got a call from her, and she said, hey, we were at a meeting at headquarters, and we had we wanted to talk. We realized in the meeting that all of us are Florida people, and Florida has the highest, as per Pew, per capita gun carry rate. We have the most concealed carry holder holders of any state. And she said, we realized that everyone at the meeting carries every day. And I said, really? I said, that's awesome. And she said, we'd like to have you come and lead the Pledge of Allegiance, is how it started. And then she says, would you write a speech and then submit it and let me know, I'll see what I can do, because I think I'd like to work you in as a speaker. And I said, okay. She said, would you like to speak it? I said, yes.
Of
because
course.
that's how it works.
That's right.
You have to say yes or you don't get called, right?
That's right.
Like as though I had done it every day of my life. Anyway.
That's fantastic.
And so we did that, and pretty much history after that. She saw the speech. She said, we're definitely having you speak. We're going to have someone else do the pledge. We want to highlight this. We want to do an entire Gun Girls for Trump. We started a Facebook page. And it really kind of turned into a bit of a movement in the industry. Women and guns, that's my thing anyway. So,
my goodness. Well, you know what? I call last year the year of saying yes for me. And it has just opened up so many doors. It's showing up is really most of any success story. So congratulations to you, and for the boldness to just say yes and then figure it out.
Cheryl, why didn't you tell me that was a year of saying yes? I would have used that very much so. I always get it after the fact.
Oh my goodness, we are moving along again, but you with your by the way, I bought a cannon, so I think every year is the year of saying yes for you. So anyway, let's go back to Clover and talking about Lawson and Palmer. Tell us about what you guys do at Lawson and Palmer.
One of the things that, we do a couple different things, and we have, it's kind of it was a brainchild that we had come up with, and it kind of morphed as we were going along, what it morphed into was that we realized that it would kind of lead its own direction at some point, and the cream would rise to the top, so to speak, as every business does. But we started off, and we still do public relations, sales, marketing. We really, really hone our entire focus to the outdoor sports firearms shooting industry, and we tailor everything that we do. We have some people that we work with that are extremely talented. We help companies do website revamps, improve their SEO. We do so we have an entire arm that does that. We do social media management for different companies and professional shooters. And we do, and that's not something that we put out there very much. We're really picky about who we'll take on to do that kind of stuff. We see need, and then we fill it, But the sales and marketing part, we do a lot of inception to market. So I have people that bring me concepts and ideas. I know where to go to get manufacturing done, how to put a product together, packaging-wise, and then actually take it to market after. We've also done some products that were a brand already, sort of, that had lost the actual product that was for the brand, and we've developed a brand new product for them, and done, now they're in the marketplace again. Better product, way better branding, way better marketing. Just kind of, and it's all firearms, outdoor sporting related. So we don't deviate from that arena. We recently took on a brand called Soldier Fuel, which is actually it's a sports bar. It's an energy bar that's designed for the United States soldier.
Oh, wow.
And that was one of those. It's kind of, people go, how does that fit into the whole firearms thing? Well, when you're doing competition shooting, you need that kind of energy like you would for an op when you're in the military.
Seriously.
So,
and sometimes you just need a quick meal, just a quick bit of fuel, keep your hands clean.
And lasts 3.
What's that?
Go ahead. It lasts a 3-year shelf life.
Yeah.
So, and that, as part of what we do, we market to people who are, preparing for life, is what I like to call it. And that, comes in handy when you're wanting to have something that you can, a go-to thing that you can have. Emergencies, hurricanes,
exactly.
Any kind of emergency management. And you need to have things that last a while somewhere that people can quickly eat and have energy to sustain themselves, because the number one situation in gun safety and everything else as far as the energy level of being able to create an environment of that is having somebody who's not falling asleep at the wheel. And
yeah, for sure.
It's pretty simple. You got to have nutrition.
Tell us how we can find out more about LNP.
Well, we have a website. And we will, our website's fairly basic, but you're welcome to use the website link to do a contact, or you can do info@LawsonPalmer.com. And we'll gladly tell you. But we have a social media page that's fairly active, and we post stuff about our products there as well that we carry. And the more we add to the bunch, and also our shooters, we have a stable of shooters that are fairly amazing, some of the best in the world. So. And that provides a test ground, too, for product. So we will develop and run test programs. So.
LawsonandPalmer.com, right?
It's LawsonPalmer.com.
Okay. LawsonPalmer.com.
No and on that one.
Gotcha. Well, we are about to run out of time, but one thing, because our theme is better, stronger, faster, I did want to just kind of touch on the fact that, some people are reacting to the election of Donald Trump by saying, all right, our Second Amendment is protected, so we can just kind of sit back and relax because, the work is going to be done for us. What would you say about that?
Never can a watchdog sit back and relax. You have to always be vigilant because, without the guidance of the people and the heart that we are here, and support the Second Amendment and the knowledge and know-how and education that we provide, will we be in a situation where it's never a time to relax, in my opinion. In fact, now is the most important time to educate the general people, especially our elected officials, on the actual premise behind the Second Amendment and guns in general, because we still have that, thing out there, that a black gun is evil,
Right.
And we need to re-educate people that, it's the people who are criminals, not the guns. The gun didn't do anything without someone else, picking it up. So now's the time. Now's the time to do all that.
Well, I agree, and so I think it's the most perfect intersection for people that did vote for Donald Trump and people that didn't vote for Donald Trump to understand that their involvement in our government is so needed. So, let's keep things on the right path for those of us that are happy he's there, and let's put things on the right path for those that aren't happy he's there. And that takes you, right?
Yep, absolutely. And every 2 and 4 years, have to do it all over again. So there's no time.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and taking the time. And I just want to encourage anybody that has a product that they want to put to the marketplace, or if you've already got things going on but you want a little bit more of a push behind you, to check out Lawson and Palmer. Right?
Good deal. Absolutely. All
right. Well, thank you, Miss Clover Lawson, LawsonPalmer.com. Bye-bye. All right. Well, thank you so much, and stick around because we still have Andrew Branca coming up. Now, Andrew wrote a book called The Law of Self-Defense, the Indispensable Guide for the Armed Citizen. You are definitely going to want to stick around and hear everything that he has to say right on the other side of this commercial.
Hey everybody, this is Joey Rocket Shoes Dillon, world champion gunslinger and Hollywood gun coach. In the Westerns, there's always a good guy and a bad guy, and sometimes the ugly guy. And I always root for the good guy, which is why I'm here to tell you about the good folks over at azfirearms.com. They are straight shooters and always give you the best deal in town. azfirearms.com is the biggest little gun shop in Arizona and have something for every single gun enthusiast. Long guns, pistols, hunting, military, law enforcement, home protection, you name it. And when you've got some guns to sell or trade in and trade up, azfirearms.com are the folks to see. Geez, they bought a cannon once. They are family-owned and operated, friendly staff, courteous, totally reliable. azfirearms.com will give you the best value for your used guns. So stop in, see my friends Dan and Cheryl Todd at azfirearms.com in Old Town Avondale off the I-10 and Dysart Road, and tell them Joey Rocket Shoes Dillon sent you.
Don Collier here, letting you know that you won't get fool's gold at Pot of Gold Auction. They're the genuine article. Pot of Gold auctions off guns, coins, jewelry, and antiques of every kind. Stop in and see my friends Dan and Cheryl Todd in Avondale, Arizona for some live auction action. Or check them out on the web at potofgoldestate.com.
Auctions take place the first and third Tuesday of every month and are full of a great mix of antiques, collectibles, jewelry, guns, and coins. Visit our beautiful air-conditioned showroom off the I-10 at Dysart Road at 215 East Western Avenue in historic downtown Avondale. You will find a friendly and knowledgeable staff, comfortable chairs, and we even serve free birthday cake at every auction. Or bid from the comfort of your home at potofgoldestate.com. Don't miss out. Everything is gone at potofgoldestate.com.
Welcome back to Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are sponsored by azfirearms.com, the biggest little gun shop in Arizona. And in keeping with our theme of better, stronger, faster, and improving ourselves and being proactive in the new year, our next guest is Andrew Branca, an internationally recognized expert on American self-defense law. He is also the author of The Law of Self-Defense. Andrew is also frequently a featured speaker at law school gun law symposia around the country and provides legal expertise for such news outlets as the Wall Street Journal and NPR and now Gun Freedom Radio. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Oh, I'm very glad to be here. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes, and you are clear as a bell. That is beautiful. That's the power of Skype right there, right?
And a high-end microphone.
Nice. Well played, sir. Well, you know, as I'm reading the name of your book and the specialty that you have in the area of law, why is self-defense law an area of specialty?
Well, I've been a member of the gun community my whole life. I started shooting competitively with small bore rifle when I was a kid, and then as an adult with mostly handgun competition. And I would go to matches and gun ranges and gun shows and gun stores, and I'd overhear people giving each other advice about what to do if they've ever had to act in self-defense, and the advice was horrific. It was the kinds of things we've all heard before, like if you shoot someone outside your house, make sure you drag them inside the house before you call the police.
So
actually
wrong.
The kind of advice that could take what was a perfectly lawful self-defense shoot and make it look exactly like manslaughter. So I would explain to them why they don't want to do that, and they said, well, okay, we understand your explanation, but what's a good resource for someone like us who's are not attorneys to go and learn what the law of self-defense really is, as opposed to what our brother-in-law who once dated a cop thinks it is, or what some internet forum or Facebook group says it is. And unfortunately, there were no good sources of information. Even for attorneys, there weren't many good sources of information. When I looked into it myself, I had to do primary legal research to learn what the law of self-defense was in all 50 states. And that's what led me to write the book. So people would have some place to turn where they could learn the law of self-defense in a manner of plain English, so they didn't have to try to translate the legalese themselves, but the information could be actionable to them.
Well, I think that's brilliant and wonderful. And, you know, when you talk about the, dragging the body back in, I mean, I can't even imagine from a lawyer's eyes what that looks like, but I'm just saying, okay, tampering with evidence right from the get-go. So, it's just such a bad idea. But then you think that, even if they've done everything, quote unquote, correctly, they were the ones that were being attacked, they took defensive action. Depending on what state they're standing in, the rules could be completely different. Maybe even what city. Is that true, or am I wrong about that?
Well, the self-defense law tends, at least in terms of defense of persons, let's set aside defense of property, the self-defense law in terms of defense of persons tends to be about, I would say, 80% the same across all 50 states. Now, that 20% that's different matters. It's the difference between being acquitted and going to prison. So you do need to know that for your specific state. But by and large, the literal law tends not to be that different. What does tend to be very different, however, is the political environment. And of course, a lot of the law, the decisions that prosecutors make to bring someone to trial, for example, are unfortunately too often politically motivated. So you could have two states that have exactly the same statutory framework for self-defense, but the decision-making on the part of the prosecutors could be completely different, or not even two different states, but two different regions within a state, a metropolitan area, an urban area, as opposed to a rural area, for example.
Holy cow. And sometimes I think that's an example of us being our own worst enemies, because, we might have the best of intentions and be voting, for laws, thinking that, they're common sense gun laws and all these sorts of things. And then when it's us that have to defend our lives, and then we're met by all these laws that are politically motivated that maybe we helped to create, that's got to be a bitter pill to swallow.
Well, what I like to tell people is, you could do everything right tactically, you could do everything right legally, but the moment you engage in a physical confrontation with somebody else, you've just assumed a non-zero risk of dying and a non-zero risk of going to jail for the rest of your life. So the circumstances under which you should be willing to assume that risk should be very, very limited. Your own life, the life of your family, sure, those things fit into that bucket. But it's a very limited list of things for which anyone should be prepared to take those risks.
Andrew, hi, I'm Dan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dan.
Hi. This book is unbelievably easy to read, and there's some very important things in there that I just kind of picked up and looked at, like describing high defensible property, what you go into detail about what that is, and then you go into the least defensible property so people can understand, okay, this is my house, I can protect my house. It's amazing. I'm looking forward to going through this whole book. Super easy to read.
Well, I appreciate that. I can tell you that it actually took us longer to translate all the legalese into plain English than it took us to do all the legal research for 50 states.
Well,
it was a difficult job, but it was well worth it. I almost came to blows with my editor more than once, but that's the single most common compliment we get on the book, is that it's easily accessible to someone who's not an attorney.
Well, I love that, because two people that I always really appreciate when they speak English, the way that I say speak English, is like computer programmers, and IT guys, and lawyers.
Yeah.
Because, you have your own language that is purposely built so that, because the difference of where a comma goes, or the difference of a specific word, can make all the difference, like you said, of an acquittal or going to prison. So we do appreciate that you brought that down to what I could understand easily. Now, when Dan was talking about the highly defensible and the least defensible property, give us an example of what those two things would be.
Well, least defensible types of property are any kind of personal or tangible property, items you could carry around. So a purse, a pocketbook. Unfortunately, pets also qualify. I know people who have pets feel like they're members of the family, but in the eyes of the law, they're just personal property. And with very rare exception, at most, you're allowed to use non-deadly force in defense of personal property. There is one exception for Texas, but we don't have time to get into that. Texas is always exceptional in its own way. The difference between that and highly defensible property is highly defensible property has the characteristic of being something that shelters or protects people. So it's places like your home or your place of business or an occupied vehicle. I say occupied vehicle because an unoccupied vehicle would simply be personal property. What the law does in most states is it allows for a greater scope of force in the defense of highly defensible property, your home, your place of business, or your occupied vehicle. What's important for people to understand, however, is that what's literally being defended, even then, is not literally the property. It's not the shingles on your home or the front doorknob on your house. That property is acting as a surrogate for the people inside the property. So what's really still being defended is humans, people inside the property. What the law is saying is, in the context of those properties, in the context of your home, the law will either allow you to use more force or to use force sooner, or to allow for a legal presumption that your use of force was reasonable when you're defending people in the context of those highly defensible properties.
So basically, like you're saying, if you see somebody trying to break into your car and you're not in the car, you would pretty well need to just call the police and let it happen, right? I mean, the safest thing to do would be to do that, right? Your car is replaceable.
Absolutely. My personal position is I would never use any degree of force to protect mere personal property. There's too much risk. There's personal risk. There's too much legal risk. And if you call the police, they have lots of police. They have lots of guns. They have dogs. They have helicopters. They have qualified immunity, so they can't get sued if something goes wrong. We don't have any of that. Yeah,
and if you catch somebody in the act of stealing a car, there's a good chance the police would catch them because they're on it right away versus, something else. But, if you had a baby in the car, which I don't know why you would have a baby in the car while you go into the house, but that's a different situation, and I'm sure there's other examples.
Right, that's completely different because then what you're defending is not the car, but the person in the car.
Right.
And then you wouldn't necessarily want to shoot at the person because a stray bullet could then hit your baby. So you've really got to think these things through, not even just in a legal standpoint, but also just, you get the 5 rules of gun safety. One of them is know where your projectile is going to go and what's beyond it, right?
Absolutely. What I like to tell people actually is the law of self-defense is not complicated. It's simple, really. There's only 5 elements of a self-defense claim, much like the rules of gun safety. It's simple, but it's not easy in the sense that you do have to do some work. You have to learn what they are, and you have to think beforehand about what you're willing to do in any kind of confrontation, because you don't have time during the fight to try to figure out what the rules are. You need to spend a little bit of time to educate yourself on the rules and to decide beforehand under what circumstances you're prepared to use what degree of force. And if you do that, then you're really well positioned to defend yourself tactically, to win the physical fight, and also to be prepared to win the legal fight that follows.
Excellent. Well, we've got to run to commercial for just a second. You'll stick around with us?
Absolutely.
Good, because we got a lot more to dive into with our guest, Andrew Branca. He is the author of The Law of Self-Defense, the indispensable guide for the armed citizen. So stick around because we have much more on the better, stronger, faster edition of Gun Freedom Radio.
And we're back with Cheryl Todd talking about the huge gun buying event at azfirearms.com. Oh, AZ, I get it, as in Arizona.
Yes, but...
Oh, or AZ, as in everything from A to Z.
Well, yes, that too. But what I'm telling everybody about is that azfirearms.com is having a huge gun buying event to buy your old firearms all across Arizona and everything from A to Z.
That's great news. See, my grandpa left me an old shotgun and it's just sitting on a closet shelf at home, so I can bring that into azfirearms.com and sell my gun?
Absolutely. azfirearms.com buys, sells, trades, and even consigns your old firearms. Any vintage, any style, military, long guns, handguns, hunting, or home protection. Single items or entire collections. We offer the highest value for your used firearms in a safe and friendly environment, staffed by knowledgeable people.
azfirearms.com is in Old Town Avondale off I-10 and Dysart Road. Come on down to the huge gun buying event every day through the end of the month at the biggest little gun shop in Arizona. And for all your firearm and ammo needs, visit azfirearms.com.
I'm Rob Morse from the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Each week we share stories about men and women who saved lives. Now I am asking you to be a lifesaver as well. The Second Amendment Foundation protects our rights to keep and bear arms. They defend our rights in courts from coast to coast. Today, they need our help. Please go to saf.org and join the Second Amendment Foundation. That's saf.org.
Be a part of the gold rush and head on down to see my friends at Pot of Gold Auctions in Avondale, Arizona. Or check out the auction online at potofgoldestate.com. These folks auction off guns, coins, jewelry, and antiques of every kind. Everything is going, gone. So you best hurry and tell them Don Collier sent you.
Welcome back to Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are sponsored by azfirearms.com, your nationwide hometown gun shop. And our theme today is Better, Stronger, Faster. And we have been talking with Andrew Branca, the author of the book, The Law of Self-Defense. And Dan had a specific question he wanted to ask you, Andrew.
So, Andrew, hi, welcome back.
I'm glad to be here.
Great. You know, we have a gun shop, and we have several customers that come in. They're new customers. They've never owned a gun before. And one of the first things they ask us, okay, now that I bought a gun, what's next? What can I do? How can I defend myself? When can I defend myself? So what is the best advice that you say I could give them?
Well, of course, the very first concern has to be safety. Safety in the handling of the firearm and safety in the storage of the firearm. I have people ask me all the time, they're interested about getting a gun for personal protection. Those are always the two things I emphasize first. If you haven't got those covered, there's no point looking at anything else. But assuming those two are covered, then yes, if they're contemplating that they may someday, despite their best efforts to avoid it, be compelled to use force in self-defense, they'd better learn what the rules are. Because people don't realize this, but it's intrinsic to claiming self-defense for some use of force. When you claim self-defense, what you're actually saying is, yes, I shot that person, but I did so with the legal justification of self-defense. The difficulty arises if your self-defense claim is weak and fails, is disproven by the prosecutor. What's left of that statement? Yes, I shot that person. All that's left is essentially a confession, and that makes for a very easy conviction for a prosecutor. So if you're going to be claiming self-defense, you'd better make sure your ducks are in a row. And for your ducks to be in a row, you have to know what the rules are. Again, they're not complicated. There's only 5 of them, but you can't figure them out in the middle of the fight. You have to have put in a little bit of effort to learn what they are and think through scenarios in which you're prepared to use force beforehand.
Right, and just owning guns doesn't qualify you to know that. I mean, I've been around guns all my life, and at one point I was arm robbed and in my store, and the person left the store, and then I fired at that person after they walked out the door. I was arrested, but they did let me out because of stop a fleeing felon law was in effect at that time. But I could have really been in some big trouble. And
he didn't hit the guy, so let's make that clear. He hit a brick wall, and the brick ricocheted and hit the guy, and the guy thought he was hit and fell down. So he did stop the fleeing felon. But yeah, that could have been really, that would have been a life-altering event for you.
And I thought I knew guns. Right. Well, I might have known guns, but I don't know the law. And so it's a responsibility. Safety's first, you're right. But most of the people that come in the store that are new owners or new buyers, they are looking for self-defense. So it is just important for them to know what they can and can't do with the gun as it is for the safety issues of the gun. So probably we're going to sell your book in our store.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that would be great. Contact me offline. We have a substantial discount for resellers of books. I think it's 50% or something like that.
Fantastic.
But one of the concerns we always have to have is, I mentioned early on when you asked me why I wrote my book in the first place, it was because there weren't any good sources of self-defense law information out there. Unfortunately, there's a lot of sources of information about self-defense law, but they're almost all bad sources of information.
Yeah.
And so people get misled. And one of the most common ways that people get misled is they'll read in the newspaper about someone who used force in supposed self-defense, and that person ends up not being arrested, not being prosecuted, not being convicted, and they think to themselves, wow, it didn't work out bad for that person. They didn't get in legal trouble. What they did must have been lawful. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in many of those cases, what the person did was actually unlawful, but that particular prosecutor chose to use his discretion, his authority, not to prosecute and convict that person. Mm. They were, in fact, vulnerable to prosecution. Mm-hmm. But if someone reads that news story and concludes that that was a lawful use of force, and they do that themselves, and then they're dealing with a prosecutor who's not as forgiving, they've really put themselves in a bind.
So on our list of things we wanted to talk about today, one of them is warning shots. What do you have to say about, the warning shot that some people think is perfectly okay to do?
Yeah, bottom line is never, ever, ever, ever do that. Warning shots are never a good idea. The most familiar reason they're not a good idea to many people is that you're only allowed to use deadly force when you're facing an imminent threat of death or grave bodily harm. So a threat that's about to happen right now. If you have the time to fire a warning shot instead of firing a shot into the attacker, it suggests that you yourself didn't believe the threat was imminent yet. If you thought the threat was imminent, you would have been firing into the person, not into the air. The other reason warning shots are very, very dangerous, legally speaking, is, once you fire that bullet, it's going somewhere. It will continue until it stops. And if you fire at the floor or fire into the air, it may ricochet off the ground. It'll come down someplace. And if it hits somebody and injures somebody, you're very likely to be facing a charge of criminal recklessness, an act of criminal negligence, because you didn't intend to hurt that person. That person didn't deserve to be hit. It was just a bystander that got hit by your ricochet. And we don't have any control over where the ricochet goes. The difficulty there is that the legal defense of self-defense only applies to an intentional use of force against an attacker. It does not apply to accidents. So if the prosecutor has a fact basis on which he can argue that your use of force was not in fact intentional self-defense, it was an act of negligence, then the judge can take self-defense completely off the table. The jury will never hear the word self-defense said in that trial because you're charged with criminal negligence, not an intentional use of force against another person. And you definitely do not want to be facing a criminal charge of negligence and not have any legal defense to raise because you're just out of luck.
Right. Well, here in Arizona, we have something called Shannon's Law that is specifically about shooting up in the air. So it's New Year's Eve, you're excited, you're reveling, you shoot in the air. Well, Shannon was the victim of just standing, I think, on her driveway, and one of those bullets from somebody somewhere came down, hit her on the top of the head, and killed her. And so when you say those bullets go somewhere, you're right. So that's a very important thing. We also said we wanted to talk about return to the fight. What is that?
Yeah, there was just a case in the media this week about this. Actually, when this story was first reported, it sounds like a bad guy was shooting at a good guy, and the good guy returned fire, and then for some weird reason, the good guy got arrested and is being prosecuted. And it doesn't really make any sense until you read the actual police report. What happened in the police report was, yes, the bad guy shot at somebody. The person he shot at actually went home and got a gun and then came back.
Oh, gosh.
That is no longer, and fired at the original person. That's not an act of self-defense. That's going home and arming yourself and coming back and starting a second fight. Unfortunately, for many people, they feel like they've been aggressed against. They have a right to return the favor. But that's not what the law says. The law says you have a right to defend yourself against that imminent threat that's happening right now. You don't have the right to leave, gun up, and then come back and start a second confrontation.
Wow. And then finally, excessive force. What do we say about that?
Excessive force really happens in two ways. Excessive force can mean too much force, disproportional force. We had a case to my office not long ago where a woman was walking through a parking lot and somebody came up to her and asked her for a light. And she was frightened. She got scared. She thought she was about to be mugged. So she took out her gun and pointed it at him. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to articulate to law enforcement any reasonable basis on which she was fearing death or grave bodily harm from this person. So essentially what she did was use deadly defensive force against what was at most a non-deadly force threat and frankly looked like no threat at all. So she used too much force for the circumstances, and if you use disproportional force, your claim of self-defense fails. The other way you can use excessive force is if you continue using force beyond the point at which the threat is imminent. And this happens quite a bit, where a good person is faced, say, with a robbery. Actually, this is much like the anecdote you just described. A good person is attacked, they have a gun, they take their gun out, and the bad guy runs away. Well, there was a point at which there was an imminent threat, at which they likely would have been lawful in shooting that attacker. But once the imminent threat is done, once the initial attacker is now running away, he's no longer an imminent threat. And if you use force once that window of imminence is closed, that use of force is not lawful.
That's awesome. And one of the chapters in your book, you talk about de-escalation, and we are actually doing a 4-part series. Today is our 4th part on conflict de-escalation, and I love seeing that in your book.
Well, I always think of it as kind of three pillars or a three-legged stool for really effective defense. And of course, the leg that everybody really focuses on because it's the most fun is the actual tactical shooting component. We all love to do that. You turn money into noise. It's a lot of fun. Another leg, of course, is the rules of engagement, the legal aspect, and that's what I cover. But a third leg that, and frankly, I think it's far too little attention, is that leg of de-escalation and understanding the criminal interactions that occur, being able to identify threat indicators, being able to de-escalate a conflict so you don't have to go to force. That it's very different than taking a shooting class, and it's very different than taking one of my law self-defense classes, but it's a truly vital skill that will do as much as either of the others to keep you alive and keep you out of jail.
Yeah, very, very important because, in the movies, it always goes one way. There's a clear good guy, clear bad guy. The police show up. Somehow magically they know who's who. Good guy picks up their firearm, heads on home, life uninterrupted. And that is just not the case, clearly. Real quickly, before
you certainly can't count on it.
Cannot count on it, that's for sure. We only got about 2 minutes left, so I did want to ask you not only to make sure that everybody understands how they can reach out to you, learn more about your book, but also what do you say about making the 911 phone call? Because some people we've talked to in self-defense law have said, give as few details, it's just the facts, ma'am. Don't let your emotion run and start telling the details of the event. What do you say about that?
Well, in 2 minutes, interacting with the police is a whole full hour module in our full day law self-defense class. But in a nutshell, I would say if you're either an actual criminal or you've never given any thought to what you might say to the police, then you probably shouldn't say anything except you want your lawyer. But if you're an informed citizen who has given thought to what might be useful to say to the police, I believe there are very specific things that can be very helpful to your self-defense claim if you know to say them and know to limit yourself to those specific things.
Very good. And then please tell folks how they can find out more about what you do, get a hold of one of your books, reach out to you personally.
Best way to reach us is at lawofselfdefense.com. Of course, we have our book. We also do about 40 full-day law self-defense seminars, live classes all over the country, and we've done them in Phoenix in the past as well. We also have an online version of our class where people can access the same content except streamed to their laptop or their tablet or their smartphone. And finally, we also have an instructors program for people who are firearms instructors who want to be able to teach this stuff at a much higher level than most, say, CCW classes manage to do. And finally, of course, we also are a legal practice. So we do a lot of legal consulting and legal advisory work to law-abiding citizens who find themselves in a situation where they've been forced to use force in defense of themselves or their family and now find themselves facing criminal charges.
Very good. Thank you again so much, Andrew F. Branca, the author of Law of Self-Defense, the indispensable guide for the armed citizen. Thank you again so much, and Happy New Year, sir. We still have another full hour of Gun Freedom Radio and some awesome guests coming up, starting with Kelly McMillan of McMillan Fiberglass Stocks. We've got lots of great stuff to talk about with Frank Miniter. He's going to talk to us about fake news. That's the big news story. And wrapping up, we will be having our fourth in a 4-part series on conflict de-escalation with John G. Miller, author of the QBQ. Stick around.